and welcome to today. Welcome to today. Always sounds like a new day. Anyway, so today I'm really pleased that we're going to be speaking all about fatigue, chronic fatigue, or just general fatigue, and to understand when it gets to the point where we must really think about it and whether there's something we should be doing. And today I'm very, very pleased to say that we have Linda Jones from the Salus, I think it's Salus Fatigue Foundation, to join us to help us understand more about fatigue. So hello, Linda.
Hello, and firstly, thank you for having me here today.
No, our pleasure. Oh God, I meant to start the webinar without my glasses on because I know that I'm constantly taking them on and off. So I forgot that's the fatigue kicking in. So today what we're going to look at are, I'm very keen to look at what are the signs to look for, because I know, Linda, you have said from your experience, which we'll talk about in a minute, is the really important thing is to start recognising your body telling you, because we all know that our bodies are very clever, but most of the time we don't bother, we plough through. So we're going to look, Linda's going to tell us what those signs are and what we should be looking out for. Then we're going to look at some practical steps that we can all take in our day-to-day lives to combat chronic fatigue and help us, particularly if we do have chronic fatigue syndrome, which is what it is now known as. And then hopefully, if there's things that you find of interest, to share them with other people, because I think it's one of those things that people just don't talk about enough to each other, or they just say, oh no, it's just me, when in fact it isn't just you, it's something that you should think about. So at the bottom of the webinar, as with all webinars, we do encourage people to please put in your questions as we go along, and then towards the end of the webinar we'll have a look and hopefully answer most of those questions for you. But without ado, let me introduce Linda again. So Linda's background, she came from a highly pressurized sales role, ironically I suppose, in the pharmaceutical industry. And she typically, like many others, started ignoring her body telling her that there were issues. So Linda, would you like to take over with your story?
Thank you. Yeah, I came from living life to the full, was really always pushing myself all the time to strive to be the best, very much a people pleaser, always wanted more. There was, I just strived to be the best in my career. It was high pressured, but I loved it. I thrived off that. And then went on to get married, had blessed with two wonderful children. And when I look back now, there were early signs that I chose to ignore because I was a person that was never ever ill, never wanted to be ill, and just kept going. And maybe if I'd looked at those signs at the early stages, I might not have gone on to having long-term chronic fatigue. It took over 2 years to get a diagnosis because, you hear this time and time again where people are struggling with symptoms, but they can't seem to get a diagnosis of what's really wrong with them. So after I got that diagnosis, it was almost like it was in a funny kind of way, it's like a celebration, because it's like, at least we know what's wrong with me and we know what we can do to put it right. And then it was a massive drop because we don't know what to do with you. We don't know how to treat you. We don't know what support. There's just nothing. Go away and read this book. And that was kind of how I was left. So I felt very, very isolated, very lonely. And I actually called it was my world, because nobody understood me, what was going on in my world. And why would they if they hadn't been through that experience? So going through all of that, getting a diagnosis, I then kind of hit real rock bottom, and to the point of I wanted to end my life because there was no hope, there was no way out of this, and it was almost like I was trapped in my own body. That's the feeling it was. It was every single morning, it was like somebody had come along and injected me with a load of poison. It was like as if my body had been poisoned. It completely shut down. I was housebound, I was bedridden on my worst days. I'd crawl up the stairs on my hands and knees to get to bed. Even to stand in the shower, the water hitting my skin would be excruciating because my whole nervous system was on high alert. Couldn't string a sentence together. My memory was just so poor, I couldn't even remember what I just said or what somebody had said to me. Couldn't stand up because of chronic pain in all my joints, muscles, digestive problems, hearing, sight. My whole body had completely shut down. But our bodies are here to protect ourselves. And that was my body's way of saying, you need to stop. There's just no fuel left in your tank. You need to rest. And for somebody who's the go-getter, wants to keep striving for more, that's very, very hard, because your mind's telling you you want to go and do something, but your body's saying, no, you can't.
So how did you then, from that point, from feeling, so I can understand it's one of those things, oh, thank God I'm not going mad. There is actually something clinically wrong with me, which is always a big problem. And I think also, particularly with people that suffer from chronic fatigue, it's because you don't have it written over your forehead. You haven't got sort of a wound to show anybody. It's very difficult. And quite often, a lot of people looked, absolutely well, don't they? And it's very difficult for people to understand, I am not well. And it's getting to accept that, isn't it?
On my good days, and everybody does have good days, those are the days that people would see me, because on your bad days, nobody would, you hide behind your front door, nobody would see you. So good days, yes, I would put a bit of makeup on and try to do my hair. I mean, I couldn't even raise my arm, but I would try my best, because I am the perfectionist as well, which many people relate to that. You want everything in your life. So I'd go out and people would be like, well, what's wrong with you? And I would hide as well behind that. I didn't actually display that there was something wrong with me, because I was embarrassed early stages. I was in denial. I wanted to pretend that everything was fine when I knew that it wasn't. So I'd go out and put this persona on that everything was good. And the same when I'd go and see a consultant or my GP, well, kind of, you look okay, but it's not it's what's going on inside your body, and your bodies are shutting down when we are living with fatigue. And that can be through cancer, where you've had radiation, you've had chemotherapy, you're left with fatigue, brain injury. Again, you're left with chronic fatigue. So it's about treating that fatigue element of the condition. And if that's where my passion comes through, about my own lived experience, I then had to find that meaning and purpose in my life of, who am I? How can I build my life back up again? And that had to start with me. Having acceptance, this is happening to me. And then looking to, how can I recover from this? And then how can I help others to actually overcome this or manage your fatigue wherever you are? Because obviously there's areas of people struggling with early signs of fatigue might not even know it's there, and then people who are actually in that long-term chronic fatigue area, which is about how can we self-manage those symptoms and have a better quality of life.
And I suppose it's very much it is, as with all chronic health conditions, it's first of all understanding and accepting it. So you're not the person that you were in many respects. You might be mentally feel that you still want to do those things, but your body's not allowing you to. So how long did it take you to get from acceptance to saying, right, I've now got to think about how I'm going to manage this?
It took me probably, to be honest, about a year, because I keep having relapses and setbacks, thinking, oh, I'm fine, my energy's back today or the next few days. My world's back to how it needs to be, and then I'd have a relapse and go back to where I came from. And it was just throughout that year, it was almost like, okay, do I want to keep going round in circles, which is what I was doing, or do I want to get out of this? And it was that point of sink or swim. I've got to do something about it, and this is down to me. It's got to be my responsibility. I've got to do my research, and I've got to find the right people and get that network around me to help me get well. And then it took me a further 6 years to then, really be in a place where I can say I've recovered. I still have to be very, very careful with my health. If I didn't, I'd go back to where I was. And again, people don't see that side either. They only see what they see. And that's difficult again. Other people are more, well, okay, this is who I am and this is where I am. And that's really good if you can do that, because that does help with that acceptance. And it's a hard thing to get over. It's tough. It's not easy to say, okay, this is my life. But the one area I did work on when I was going through that transition is saying, this is temporary. I am in a transition stage. This isn't forever. And that's switching your mindset into a really positive place, which is so important.
Absolutely. Yeah. So before we go into how, and we're talking about you, but I know we could also be talking about everybody's journey with these things is different, but there's a lot of common things that people can share. But before you, when you started feeling it, what were the signs and symptoms that we should be looking for? Because the other thing is, I think that's particularly now with COVID, one of the biggest problems is the fatigue that's coming out. And what I've understood is that particularly younger people who might have had it very mildly, when they come out of it, are left with this fatigue type of thing. So in one way, hopefully people that are suffering with chronic fatigue syndrome, there's more awareness now of the issues, and hopefully we can start doing more, I suppose more research will go into chronic fatigue and how we can sort it. But before we get to that, what were the sort of signs that we should be looking for to say this is our warning signs?
Yeah. So certainly with myself and what I've seen with a lot of other people over the last 11 years is headaches, but quite severe headaches that can happen often. That's kind of one of the big signs. I always seem to struggle with headaches, but kind of just, as everyone does, some paracetamol, Nurofen, and get on with it. But these headaches became more severe. They were really, really very painful and last 2, 3, 4 days. Waking up feeling unrefreshed. So you've gone to sleep, but you're not going into that deep sleep. So I'd wake up feeling, I've had a little bit of a sleep, but we all know we've had a really good night's sleep. We feel so much better, don't we? Whatever age we are, you hear it, I had a great night's sleep. So it's that continuously waking up feeling unrefreshed. You haven't had a good night's sleep. That's one of the early signs. Swollen glands, sore throats, that upper respiratory recurring infections that, again, you think, I'll be okay. And another one comes and another one comes, and they become more frequent. Digestive problems can be another sign. So often you call it IBS. Just be really aware of those signs. How frequent are they? How severe? Is it getting worse? Are you having a lot of stomach pains? We all know our own bodies. We know what's right and what's wrong. So connect into you and know if something's not quite right, don't ignore it. Start looking at it. Small tasks, daily basic tasks, whether it's work, running your home, being with friends or family, engaging in conversations. If those are becoming irritable to you, your mood's becoming low, or you feel like everything's starting to pile on top of you and you can't cope, there are other signs. Now they can trigger into other things, but stress is okay, as we know, for a short time, stress and pressure, but we can't sustain that for a long time. If we feel like we're under that pressure constantly, you need to change something in your life.
So if somebody has all those main symptoms that you've just said, what would you recommend they go and see a doctor straight away, or would you recommend actually start thinking about your lifestyle as well, because your doctor's going to take a while to give you that diagnosis, because there's obviously so many other things it possibly could be, and that you go through that process of checking things, don't you?
I mean, we all know our own bodies. We we are who we are, and it's about connecting into you and in a deeper level. And always, if you are concerned about anything, then go to your GP straight away, and they'll do the necessary blood tests to eliminate other things. If you're seeing kind of early signs, start changing your lifestyle. Start making those changes early, because if you can get in early intervention, prevention, you're less likely then to go into something more like long-term chronic fatigue like I did. And perhaps if I'd seen those signs, made those changes early on, I wouldn't have gone into where I got to. And I chose to ignore them. When I look back now, I can see them all, and I chose to ignore them for whatever those reasons were. I just didn't accept it, and I pushed and pushed and pushed myself. Also, what you could see is pain through joints, muscles. Particularly with me, my legs became very, very heavy. I was finding it difficult to stand up for just a short duration of time, but put it down to my lifestyle. I was busy, I was running a business, I've got 2 young children, did a renovation on our home. I had lots of different factors coming in there.
Sorry, I was just thinking that a lot of those things that you've said could also be menopausal type of things, but does chronic fatigue, and I'm excuse my ignorance, but can it hit at any age, or is it more likely to hit in your 20s and 30s?
We see within the charity over the last 11 years, we've seen a lot of younger people that had glandular fever, predominantly around exam time, when the body's really, really pushed and you're under pressure. Then your immunity is low, so then you pick up glandular fever. We've seen a big link with that, with the younger generation, but it's always at a time when the body's under a lot of pressure. For example, exam time. Pregnancy, we see it then, because again, the body's under pressure. We see it menopausal, because again, the body is under pressure. He's had a big trauma in their lives. There's a lot of stress going on. It's always when the body's under an awful amount of stress, it's open, and then virus comes along, and it's like, oh, there we go. Well, we'll have that body there, because it's kind of open. It's an open book. So that again tells us if we can keep ourselves in a really good place with our health as much as we can, and get the right knowledge and education to support that. I always call it's your toolbox, and within that toolbox you keep all your little bits and pieces to know when to tap into those to keep yourself, wherever you are on your journey, whether you've got good health, whether you've got early signs of fatigue, or whether you're into something that's more long-term chronic. It's bringing those bits out of your toolbox, which we can go into, of what that looks like. And I still do it to this day. When I'm under pressure life, this is life. Life, it happens, doesn't it? Look what's happened this year. And even more so now, we've got to be taking better care of ourselves. And that's just not about now. This is about next year, because we're all in uncertain times at the moment. We don't know what the future looks like. We don't know what tomorrow looks like. But again, I tell people to be in the here and now.
Yeah.
Be in this moment right now. Stop worrying about the past. We can't change that. It's happened. Stop worrying about the future. Even what's going on later on today. Be in the present moment right now, right here.
Well, I'm very intrigued to look into your little toolbox to see what would you say the top sort of 3 gems? I don't know if they're gems, and I suppose it sort of applies for different people, but what are the sort of, we might say, well, it's obvious, but we never do the obvious, do we, to look after ourselves? So what would you say was in, one of those big hammers in that toolbox to really sort it out?
And just so that everyone knows that I am human, and I am normal, that I still make mistakes now. I've been through all this journey. I've gone over that cliff edge, and it's an awful long way back up. But you get back into a bit of normal life, and we all forget, and you start picking up bad little habits again.
Yeah.
And you think, why have I done that again? And it's okay, let it go, and come back into what do I need to do to correct that. So that the biggest thing I would say is nutrition, it's so important. I thought I was eating healthy, but I wasn't. And because my body was breaking down, it needed even more help and guidance. So for one example is, start off with a really good protein breakfast, have some healthy snacks, keep your blood sugar levels at a good balanced place. I've got a particularly very sweet tooth. I love chocolate. So if I'm going to have it, I'll have organic and I'll have dark chocolate, which is better for me.
It's not so nice though, is it? Because I'm a real naughty girl when it comes to things like that. And I'd love to like dark chocolate.
I've got myself to make myself like it now, so I do enjoy it. It took me a long time to get there, but it's you can still have your little treats, but have healthier ones, and it will pay off in the end. So nutrition is a big one, and eating regularly, having lots of filtered fresh water, herbal teas. I was the coffee queen. I lived off strong coffee. Again, that kept me going. So are you reaching out for the sugary carbohydrates, the coffee, the caffeine, to get that fix to keep your energy going? If you are, that's another sign. So look at ways of, if you can work with a nutritionist, great. If not, there's a lot online that you can access. But I always use the car scenario. If you put the wrong fuel in your car, it's not going to go in. It's the same as our bodies. So eat healthy, eat regularly, batch cook when you can, when you've got the energy, or you've got a family member or a close neighbour or friend. Batch cook, freeze it, so you've always got healthy options around you, because it's when your energy's low, you reach out for the wrong thing, and it's generally high sugar, high carbs, high caffeine. Another key area is sleep. Sleep is so important. So important that keep into a really good routine. That was key for me, is go to bed at the same time every night and then wake up in the morning. Even though I absolutely could not get out of bed, I'd make myself get out of bed every morning at the same time. Our bodies like routine. It just loves that habit, and it's getting ourselves into that. If you, what I found, and probably other people have found, is if I'd missed that window of going to bed at a reasonable time, which sometimes it was 8 o'clock, sometimes it was 9 o'clock, if I'd missed that window, I would then all of a sudden become alert and alive at night. And I'm like, this is crazy. I've been on my knees all day. I'm exhausted. And why? It's like switch the light on at 11 o'clock at night. And this is this 90-minute circadian rhythm. So if you miss that 90-minute slot, you then have to wait for the next one. So I'd always make sure at 8 o'clock I was winding down for the night. So have an Epsom salt bath, for example, great for magnesium into the body, great for the joints, muscles, energy levels. Have candles around me. Don't watch the news, certainly not at the moment. Don't watch read a book that's horror or something like that, that's going to get everything alert. Everything's got to be calming down, but do it early. Start doing it slowly so that you will be ready at 9 o'clock, 9:30 the latest, to start your sleep, and that will set you up for the night. Meditation's another big part of it, relaxation. I still find hard to do now. I think a lot of us do, because our lives are still busy, even though we're all at home at the moment. And even if you find it hard to move and walk because of energy, if you're sitting, your brain will still be alert, because the type of people that we are naturally very, very active in our brains. So be very careful if you are sitting. Are you really resting? Is your mind really resting? And talk to yourself, ask yourself that question, what's going on in my thoughts? So, there's lots of apps out there at the moment where you can listen to meditations that will help to relax your mind and your body, so you're getting a better night's sleep. Bringing yourself into that present moment is key again. And movement, I was scared to move, absolutely petrified to move, because everything hurt in my body. Everything. So, my hands would be like that. I couldn't even straighten my fingers, to raise my arms, everything, to touch everything hurt. So I eventually got the courage and said, I need to start moving here. Our bodies love movement. So I would do a just gentle walk around the garden. I was lucky enough to have, I had a Zen area made in the garden that was kind of my little sanctuary, that I would, even in the winter, I'd put my coat on, wrap up and get outside, get in fresh air. If you haven't got a garden, go to a local park, go and be by nature, go and sit by water if you can, anything like that will naturally heal and allow your body to heal. It's so important. Just thinking that there's so many things, but I'm just thinking of the real.
They're the big things, aren't they, that not only help us, with chronic fatigue, whether it's something that, but generally, I mean, funnily enough, last week we were speaking to Sophie Medlin, and it was very, around gut health. And she said, keep nuts. Nuts are a great thing to keep your energy levels up. So I think the things that you've spelt out are things that once again, they're things that generally we all know, but it's that question of reminding ourselves and getting us back into the routine. And I like what you said about going somewhere special, sort of having a special place to go to. And I always think it's like going to somewhere that's safe. So although you're going outside, when I say safe, that when you go there, it's going to be a positive experience for you.
Yeah.
It's very much like just doing general exercise. We all think, oh, really? But, I've never come back from a gym session or a run or whatever luckily I can do, and thought, God, I hated that. That was a waste of time. That just doesn't happen. So it's a place of going somewhere that is nurturing for you.
Yes.
And it will make you, which comes into the mind and the positivity that you were talking about earlier.
Yeah, and it's when you're feeling like this, you don't feel safe, you do feel insecure, and fear comes in. And that's not a nice feeling. So if you can put yourself into that safe place, and what I'd also do is work on my mind with that. So that safe place, wherever it was, I'd actually, when I go to bed at night, I'd put myself back in through my mind in that place, so that I did feel secure and I did feel safe. And that is so important. And almost it's like that's your little sanctuary.
Yeah.
At the time, my children were young, and and whether you've got children or not, or whether you've got family around, you've always got the demands of life, and that's life. And when one goes, another will come. So it's about having healthy boundaries for yourself to say, this is okay to be here. This is my place. And also connect to what works for you. Some people might be very creative with painting, or you have got the energy to read. I couldn't read, but connecting to whatever makes you feel good, that nurtures your inner soul, and treat yourself as you would treat a young child, or a dog or a cat. We tend not to, and especially when we're in this place of fear, we disconnect from ourselves. And
being kind, isn't it?
Yeah, and it's nurturing you, your inner self, and know that you are worthy and that you are enough just as you are. And give yourself that love and compassion.
Yeah.
And it's not easy. I've been there, I've done it for years. It's not easy, but it does work. And what I would say is work on one thing, get through that, and then try something else, and then just that starts building up, and it's almost like this jigsaw. It's not just one part of it that will help with your recovery or moving you into a better place. It's every part of it, but don't look at the whole thing and think, where do I start with this?
Bit by bit.
Yeah,
I think it's slowly, isn't it? And if you can build as much as you possibly can into routine, that then makes in itself, it doesn't become necessarily a tiring thing because it's routine. So I'm now going to put my glasses on, because I'm going to have a look at the question, because we've been running a bit late, because it's just so interesting to understand how we can all help ourselves. So right, So Jane says, have you got a tip you would give for when you're very ill, and a tip when you would give for now when you're better to manage your fatigue? So that's sort of two tips, if you're very, very ill, and then as you're getting better.
So when you're at a point when you are very, very ill, is, again, know that, get yourself into a really positive mind and say, this isn't forever. And if you have a relapse, which a lot of people do, say, that's okay. That is okay. I'm going to get back to where I was and a bit further forward. So always have that knowledge that this isn't forever. Don't, because we all tend to go into panic mode. Oh gosh, what's happening now? Why is this happening to me? And all these questions start to come out. Have confidence and hope that you'll get through this. And when you're in a good place and your energy will be feeling good, the key to that is holding that energy. What we tend to do is we go out and we say, right, I'm feeling fantastic today. I've got all this energy. I'm just going to go for it today. I'm going to do all those jobs that I wanted to do. I'm going to do this, that, and the other, help such and such and speak to such and such. Even having a conversation with somebody takes up your energy.
Yeah.
And it takes a hell of a lot of energy. So it's about holding on to that energy, and it is hard, and that comes down to pacing yourself. So what you plan to do in a day, I will say halve it down again and halve it down again, and then even halve it again if you can. And that is the hardest part, to actually learn to say to others and yourself, no, I'm not going to do that today. And once you start to see the benefits of that, you'll start to do more of it.
I love that, spoonies, and I think it's an American term that's come. Yeah. So for someone who doesn't know, spoons are when you say that you, I think, classify your energy levels, that you have 10 spoons of energy. And you start to realise that if you go shopping, you've actually used possibly 7 or 8 spoons in the day. So that leaves you 2 spoons to use for the rest of the day. And I think it's a great way to show measurement to friends who don't understand, who do think perhaps you're being rude and you're ignoring them. And it's saying, no, I have no energy. I've got 2 spoons left. And those 2 spoons have got to get me to eat my dinner and brush my teeth at night. It's as simple as that, isn't it?
Yeah.
Right, so I'm going to crack through these now. Are there any vitamins and minerals you would recommend to help fatigue? I take vitamin B, C. Oh, it's just disappeared, that one. Sorry.
Yeah, okay. Well, yeah, there are. And I always advise to work with a health practitioner, whether it's a naturopath, a nutritionist, who's qualified and knows how to work with people with fatigue. And supplementation, it's a big part of it, and herbal medicine. It has been a huge part of my recovery as well. Everything that's natural, just with supplements, watch what ingredients are in there, make sure you're using a really good quality one. And often if you work with a practitioner, they'll give you the right guidance. But when the body's depleted, we don't get enough through our food chain, even as a healthy person. So I'm very much for those as an added one into the toolbox.
Yeah. As someone who has chronic fatigue, a lot of the symptoms also point to fibromyalgia. Did you also get a diagnosis of that?
At the time, and this is going back over 15, 20 years ago now, and even to get a diagnosis, as we thought earlier, took a long time. And my diagnosis was chronic fatigue syndrome, even though there was fibromyalgia there, but that wasn't picked up. But as soon as I knew what it was, I started doing my own research and became I did a TEDx talk back in March. And I talk about, I was looking for a magic wand, and I became that magic wand. Because, I just wanted to go around and just make all this better, because that's what we want. And I knew that it was in me, and we are all of us can do that. And that's about where I said earlier on, start connecting into yourself, who you really are, what you need and what you don't need, because our bodies are here to protect us and work with us, not against us.
Yeah.
But if you can work with somebody around you, get the right support mechanism to support you.
Right, next we've got 2 more questions. I've suffered with fibromyalgia for the last 20 years, which includes chronic fatigue. So can relate with you. It's so hard, especially when people think you're okay. And I'm always learning on new things, how to cope with this and how it can be done. So sorry, that's not actually a question. That's somebody just saying it's just working out. So how you might have done something before. So you might have, from one point to the other, you just did a quick jump. It's now looking that quick jump, which was just one step, is now possibly 3 or 4 steps, isn't it? To get to achieve the same thing.
Yeah. Another point that's just come to my mind is that will help, certainly with fibromyalgia as well, is what I've found is, if obviously saunas and things at the moment are very hard to access, but that's obviously dry heat. This time of year, everything's very damp. So that's excellent for our bodies, but be careful with the level of heat that's in there, because of obviously you don't want to stay into things like that if you're under real chronic stress. But what you can do is hot and cold showers. And this is a very old naturopathic, again, technique, like the magnesium, the Epsom salt baths or the foot soaks. With the hot and cold showers, it's going to get your lymph system going, it's going to get your blood system going, it's going to get everything starting to move. Now, when I was in really chronic pain, even stepping in the shower hurt, but it's shifting through that slowly. So start with your showers, just, have a nice warm shower first of all. Don't just dive into something that you'll all go, what the hell was Linda talking about that day? Start to turn the temperature just a little bit down, get acclimatized to it. And eventually, I still do it every day to this day. I do really cold showers, hot, and I keep alternating. You will feel amazing.
But it's building it up, isn't it?
It is, and it's the same
thing to do is to build it up every time. Just have the cold bit at the end and build that longer.
Small steps. It's always small steps. It's been a gentle approach because our bodies are in a huge amount of stress. Hot baths at the time, I was doing lots and lots of hot baths because I just wanted the heat, but it was just setting me back because they were too hot. It was too much for my body at the time. So it's being gentle, but hot and cold showers, I'm a massive one for those. And years ago, I used to do health retreats, and these ladies used to come in their 90s, and they were amazing. And they were all doing naturopathic old remedies like hot and cold showers, Epsom salt baths, the little trumpets, again, fantastic. Don't take a lot of space in your home. Great to do some bounces on there, just to get everything moving in our body. Another little really useful, helpful tip for people.
Well, and the last one, my son had ME in his teens and often couldn't move. He eventually was healed. My grandson went into PTSD about 7 years old, following a couple of huge family disasters. He's now 12 and much improved, though often very tired still. I've had type 1 diabetes for nearly 6 years, and the fatigue seems to be getting worse. I find it nearly impossible to get up in the morning, however many hours sleep I've had. Would all these come under chronic fatigue?
From my experience of working with a lot of people, then and just start with some of the little tips we've talked about today. Just take one and start with that. But nutrition would be very key there. Start with your nutrition. Start with a nice healthy protein breakfast in the morning. If you've got a NutriBullet, or they're called ninjas and things, a high speed blender, start doing some smoothies, but make sure they're more vegetable based with a small amount of fruit. So quick and easy to do, but you're going to get lots of good healthy nutrition into your body there. Soups this time of year, soups are so easy to make and cost effective, they're not expensive. Get all your warming herbs in there, your ginger, your chili, cumin, coriander, all of those will really, turmeric's fantastic for inflammation. Get all those herbs in. I made a lovely soup last night. It was so quick and easy. The end of the working day, I was tired, but I did it. It doesn't take long. But go back to batch cooking, or get somebody to make it for you, freeze it, all of those things will help with your energy.
And I think batch cooking is so good, because those days when you don't have the energy, that's when you turn to the rubbish, and then that's the thing that puts you back by a few days, isn't it? I think that's the main thing. Yeah,
if you've got your sugar spikes, you get that massive high and then that low again, and then what do? You reach out for more, and you reach out for more because you know you're just craving something that's carby, that's high sugar. So it's about maintaining that. Nuts and seeds, fantastic. If you can't digest those because you've got digestive problems, blend them. Put them into a powder, keep them in, sprinkle them into your soups, sprinkle them over salads. You know, be careful with raw food this time of year, because we're going into a cold season. Our bodies don't particularly want that so much. They want something warming and more substantial.
Brill, thank you. Well, I'm afraid we're going to have to draw. I can't believe where the time has gone. I always say that at the end of them, because it's the stuff that one hears is so interesting. And I don't think it's whether you have that condition or not. Everything is always very good, because it goes back to how we should nurture and look after ourselves, and be kind, connect and be kind. I think is one of the really strong messages I got today from you. So,
yeah.
All right. Linda, I hope you'll come back again to give us some more of your tools, because I just think it was so useful. It was great. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for today. Thank you.
Our pleasure.
Bye-bye.
Bye.